Throughout most of my life, I've been known as kind of a fixer, even before this channel. Back in primary school, I used to frequently get pulled out of classes because some student or teacher needed some computer help, and I guess it was easier getting me than some guy from IT. Now, a lot of the issues back then were pretty straightforward. The sound isn't working, the speaker cable isn't plugged in, printer isn't working, I'll install a printer real quick, my Word document isn't saving, you can't put question marks in Windows file names. Basic stuff. And honestly, I kinda loved it. It made me feel useful, it gave me a little bit of an ego boost, and it pulled me out of class. I mean, what's not to like? In high school though, I kind of toned this down. As social cliques and social currency became a thing, I kind of wanted to be known as cool or interesting for reasons other than, oh, he helps me sometimes on the computer. Looking back, I kind of wish that I had just stuck to being more myself, but I did help friends with port forwarding their Minecraft servers or pirating Adobe software every now and then. After graduating high school, I chose, much to my parents' chagrin, to not go to university and instead work on this very YouTube channel. And because trying to launch a YouTube channel is not a very social activity, for a while I didn't really meet any new people. Even a year after graduating, my Facebook feed was still predominantly old high school friends. And yes, we all used Facebook. I think my age group was the last one to actually think Facebook was cool, before it became just that thing that your parents used for shit memes and to argue politics on. So I was scrolling through my feed one day and found a post from one such person I hadn't seen in a year. In fact, I don't think we ever even spoke in school, but I guess we were aware of each other, and she'd posted a video of her MacBook glitching out, not starting up, and was asking if anyone knew what to do. And I guess that helper instinct kicked in because I sent her a message and was like, hey, I kind of know things about computers, I might be able to help, and she was like, awesome, you want to meet up? And so we did. Sure enough, it wasn't booting, or at least not most of the time. Sometimes it would get to the desktop, but then the desktop would crash and the wallpaper would disappear and you wouldn't be able to do anything, so yeah, it definitely wasn't working. What I found was that it basically had only a couple hundred megabytes of disk space left. Basically, it barely had enough space to even complete a successful boot, and even when it could do that, it didn't have enough space to do literally anything else. So I booted it into single user mode, which is kind of a macOS/Unix feature where you can boot into a root level minimal terminal and try and see what's wrong if nothing else is working. There's a tool called DU for disk usage, which basically gives you an overview of what is using space on your computer. And what I found by using that was that hundreds of gigabytes were taken up by iPhone backups, like several iPhone backups. So I was like, there's your problem. And in my head, I kind of reasoned that, well, a backup by definition is a redundant copy. I'm still just trying to figure out if my diagnosis is correct. She can always make more backups later. She almost certainly doesn't need like 20 of them. So I just deleted them all. All of them, and not just put into the trash either. Like, I typed in rm-rf, so they were fucking gone. And good news, I was right. The MacBook then booted successfully and everything seemed to be working perfectly fine again. Another job well done, right? Well, it was at that point that she said, you know what else isn't starting up correctly? My iPhone. Oh, she was like, yeah, I already tried to restore earlier today and it still isn't booting. Oh, for those of you who don't know, a restore is, or at least was, Apple speak for complete factory reset. Literally wipe everything, clear it all out, and hopefully restore from a backup that I just deleted. In my head, I'm like, she just wiped her whole phone under the impression that she had plenty of backups. I mean, clearly backing up is important to her because she made a lot of them. And because of me, there is now quite literally nothing to restore from. Everything is gone. There were so many things I could have done to prevent that. I could have deleted just a few of the backups and just cleared up a little bit of space. I could have probably even gotten away with deleting all but the most recent backup. I could have moved all the backups to an external hard drive of some kind. But you know what I really should have done? Ask. I should have been like, oh, look, all your disk space is taken up by iPhone backups. What do you think? We could delete a few of them. What do you want to do with these? And she probably would have been like, oh, actually, I need some of those because my fucking iPhone isn't working right now. I think it felt like it was a routine thing, like emptying the trash or clearing browser cache. But honestly, even emptying the trash, you should still ask, because I've had people later on say, oh, don't delete the trash yet because I want to go through that just to make sure I haven't deleted anything important. Basically, just never make assumptions when it comes to whether someone else's data is important or not. I think that's probably the fatal mistake that I made that day. So in my head, I was panicking a little. I was trying to stay as relaxed as possible, hoping I could salvage the situation somehow. It was actually getting pretty late and she worked a 9 to 5, so I was like, how about I continue working on this at home? We can meet up tomorrow and finish this off. And she was like, sure. So I took it to my house, hoping I could run some sort of undelete program and hopefully get at least one of her backups back. So let's talk about how undeleting works for a second. A hard drive is basically a big continuous block of zeros and ones with everything kind of packed in together. The file system will usually have a table of contents that points to where each file starts and ends. That's an oversimplification, but that's essentially how it works. Now, when you permanently delete a file, it's actually far more efficient for the computer to just pluck those files out of the table of contents so that as far as it's concerned, there's nothing there, rather than clear out all the space that that file used to take up. Basically, rather than overwriting it with zeros, it designates that area as this is nothing, we can overwrite that at some point. However, until that area is actually overwritten, technically all the data is still there. This is what undelete programs search through, the parts of your hard drive marked as nothing, and while it can't know exactly where files used to be, it can search for known common file headers. WAV files, MP4 files, or whatever all have predictable headers identifying what they are and usually how much data is in them. Undeleters can then use that information to try reassembling the file. In theory, if it was a recent deletion, or for whatever reason the OS hadn't had a chance to write over that area yet, a file could be completely restored. The problem is, iPhone backups aren't just common everyday file formats. In fact, I didn't even know what they were. The file names didn't give me any sort of suggestion. And this was before I knew anything about hex editing or reverse engineering file formats. To me, it looked like proprietary, obscure binary stuff that I had no chance of understanding. And while there may have been standard file formats within the backup, unless the undelete program was trained on iPhone backups specifically, it didn't really have a chance of finding the whole thing. And sadly, that ended up being the case. All the undelete programs I found could pull out random text files or fragments of files, but never a full iPhone backup as is. Since then, someone has done a pretty in-depth analysis and found that despite their cryptic file names, they're actually just a bunch of SQLite databases. Maybe if I knew that or could figure that out today, I could write some undelete tool or script to search specifically for that sort of thing, but back then, I wouldn't have even known where to start. So at that point, I had run out of options. The next day, she came over and I had to explain that, well, I couldn't get your backup back. Some things like her photos and contacts had synchronized with her computer so they could be restored, but her message histories were gone, all of her apps had to be re-downloaded and reconfigured, and she did politely mention to me that the reason she was so diligent about backing up was specifically so she wouldn't have to be in this position. So, yeah, I really fucked that one up. She actually did ask for my help one more time. It was about a year later when she upgraded to a new computer and wanted me to factory reset her old one so that she could sell it. I was honestly really surprised that she was asking for my help again because I felt like I fucked up so badly the first time. Then I realized she probably thought to herself, okay, well, this guy is really good at deleting things. I don't trust him to do much, but I do trust him to do that. So yeah, moral of the story is, I guess specifically, don't make assumptions about how important someone's files are, but more broadly, you know, everyone makes mistakes, nobody's perfect, we all have had to learn things the hard way. You know, my channel often focuses on my achievements and my successes, but I've had a lot of failures as well, and I think that's important to talk about. Hopefully this was funny or relatable. Whatever you got out of this video, I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye guys.
Subscribe to MattKC.